What's up? And we're live here on Facebook, Minding Your Business Podcast. Ron Brooks is your host. I'm going to let y'all go ahead and jump in because I know it's hitting your notifications. Y'all been worrying the hell out of me all day, so we're here now, even though we're a little bit late. That's my fault. But Minding Your Business Podcast, we're getting ready to get started. So I'm going to give y'all a chance to start jumping in. Oh, here they go now. They racing in. Some of y'all couldn't wait, boy. Some of y'all been worrying me for the last 24 hours. Heather Blue, Sora, what's going on? Scott, how you doing? Frazier, what's going on, brother? How you doing? Good afternoon to you. Jason, how you doing? What's going on, man? So we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to record the podcast, and I'm going to introduce my guest that y'all been waiting on for the last 100 years or so. So let's go ahead and get this thing going. Sherman, what's up? What's up, man? You ready? Are you sure?
No
You
problem.
good? Yeah, these folks. Let's see. Jamara, what's going on? Are you ready? Yeah, I know you're ready. You stay ready. Leroy. Solomon Page. Solomon, I need to get with you too, man. It's something I need to run by you. Oh, yes. Jamar said yes. Sis Navanda, what's going on? Emily. All right, folks, let's get this thing going. Let me set everything up. So y'all get to see some of the behind the scenes that the folks listening to the podcast don't get. So just consider yourselves fortunate. Navana, what's up, sis? What's going on? I'm glad you could join. Gather up all the pharmacy folks and all the licensed drug dealers and tell them come on. They're going to want to hear about this one. All right, y'all, I'm going to stop playing with y'all. Solomon Page, most definitely wrong. Yeah, there's something financial I need to run by you, Solomon. So I know you got the mindset for that, so most definitely. Angela Morris, look what the cat drug you. Big time when Angela Morris jump on. What's up, girl? All right, let me stop playing with y'all. I'm going to get started, so I got to get focused. The Minding Your Business podcast comes to you via Brooks Brothers Consulting Incorporated. Brooks Brothers Consulting, I started with my brother Philip back in June of 2013, and we provide leadership talent development coaching for new and existing executives, directors, and managers. So if you're working at a company and you happen to be new in leadership, or you've been in leadership for some time and you are new to the company and looking to kind of grow and step your game up to move to the next level, give us a call, 901-299-6822. You can visit us at www.brooksbrothersconsulting.com. And you can also email us at info@brooksbrothersconsulting.com. Today is episode 36 of the Minding Your Business podcast. We're moving right along, y'all. I've got a special guest in the building that I'm going to introduce shortly that y'all been waiting on for some time and worrying the hell out of me. So, without any further ado, I've got her, but you know how we do it. Let's get the music cranking. Turn it up.
What we do here is go back, 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 back.
Scotty, what's up, brother? All right. So thank y'all so much for joining into the Minding Your Business podcast. Today is Friday, February the 23rd, 2018, and the weather's been so crazy here in Memphis. We've gone from, I think earlier in the week it was 75 and sunny, then the next day it was 45 and raining, and then the next day then it gets to 50 something and raining, and now today it's back to 70 something and partly cloudy. So I don't know. Memphis knows what the hell it wants to do with the weather. But so glad y'all could join. Make sure that you share the podcast. Thank you to all of you that have gone out on Apple Podcast and Google Play and SoundCloud and YouTube and MooTube and wherever else y'all be going, Snapchat and Rat Pack and everywhere else y'all go doing stuff nowadays online. Thank you so much for going and sharing and liking, giving positive feedback, positive comments. All that helps the show and help us be able to expand our reach as we look to edify community through entrepreneurship, best practices with trending news topics, and real estate. So I'm your host, Ron Brooks, and I'm so glad to have my special guest today. She's someone that I've been able to see grow and admire, close working together, and far someone that's got the type of grind that you look for. And the type of pedigree that you look for when you're out here and you're building brands and building business. And we're really going to get into some really good subjects today that I think are going to help a lot of people, whether you're starting out your business, whether you've been in business for a long time, whether you're at work now. You may be at the cubicle watching this right now, and you're hoping your boss don't walk by and see you watching the Mind Your Business podcast on Facebook. But you're looking at what you're going to do, what's your next step, what's your next plan. And it's important that you understand how you're going to put that out there for the masses to see, and how you're going to drive business to your organization. So we're not talking about hobbies today. So if you want to go and you want to collect baseball cards or collect rocks, that's a nice hobby. Going to the gym, playing basketball, if you're not in the NBA and all that, that's nice. But today we're talking about serious business. And so what's up, Yasmin, Terry Martin, Miss Taylor, how you doing? Eric, what's up? And then Scotty, I got a chance to shout him out. But without any further ado, I want to introduce Miss Danielle Reid, who is a marketing and brand ambassador here in the Memphis and kind of tri-state area, and then even beyond, because she fancies herself for taking her expertise even around the country and outside the U.S. in some cases. So what's up, Danielle?
Hey, how are you?
Doing good. What's going on?
Not too much.
You ready to give some value today?
Yep, let's get to it.
All right, cool. So Danielle, why don't you kind of start by, for those that maybe don't know you or not familiar with your work, tell them, kind of who you are and kind of how you got to be what you do.
Okay. Well, my name is Danielle. I've been working in the marketing advertising industry for a little over 11 years. I started out freelancing and then went full-time when I actually was laid off from a full-time job in 2011. And so I was like, okay, the opportunity presented itself for me to become a full-time marketing manager. When I was laid off from my job, of course, in Memphis, we're a distribution hub. And so I went from being a order management coordinator to being a full-time marketing manager. So in that time, I've got the opportunity to work for different brands such as Nissan, which is one of my biggest clients to this day. All kind of products you can think of, ranging from pharmaceutical companies to adult beverages. So for a lot of people, they met me. I'm not really a nightlife person, but if I'm at work, then you'll see me out. Excuse me. Yeah. But say, for instance, a lot of people met me when I was doing Remy Martin. So Remy Martin did a big launch coming back in Memphis. They had been out of the Memphis area for a long time and said, hey, you want to get back in there? And they came to me. Yeah. So a lot of people, they knew me from being at Ice Bar and different clubs and things like that. But overall, doing everything from brand strategy to rebranding to new brand launches to people just coming saying, hey, I know what I want to do, but I don't know how to do it. Can you help me? Yeah. Basically everything in between, from experiential marketing events to, I hate to say it, but when people are going out of business and they say, hey, I need to be able to advertise my going out of business sale, how can I get this inventory off of me? So everything in between. So
gotcha. Okay. So, in getting started with that, what are some of the, maybe concerns or maybe obstacles you might have ran into when you were first kind of getting to your business and kind of on your own? I know a lot of people, that's their story. They tend to have an issue in their kind of 9 to 5 job and and that kind of thing, and so that may resonate with a lot of people. But for you, did you run into a lot of obstacles or anything starting out?
It's always, for a lot of people, especially when you're making the transition from working full-time to being just a full-time entrepreneur, it's scary.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times we tend to put more effort and work into doing something and putting someone else's dream out there than we do in our own.
Yeah.
So for me, it was a hard adjustment. It was very hard because it was like, ugh. If you don't grind, you don't eat.
Right.
And so a lot of people don't understand that, and they don't realize, if you don't get out there and you don't push yourself out there, you aren't going to have that paycheck coming in the same way you could if you go to a job and you're barely working. So.
Right. Yeah. So for you, how would you define, because a lot of times what I find when I'm consulting with business owners, whether they're new and in some cases it's even interesting, Danielle, when they're existing, have been in business for a while, and they don't know the difference between, say, like marketing and branding and advertising. They tend to either misdefine one for the other, or they loop them all in as one. So how would you define, say marketing to branding to advertising?
Okay. So of course, all of it is part of marketing, but what people don't understand is the brand is, who are you? What makes your product different from someone else's? So say a brand is, what do people think of when they hear your name? So say with Nike, everybody knows swoosh, just do it, etc. Right. So you have to know how do I want people, when they hear whatever the name of, whatever product it is that you have, whatever company it is, what do you want people to think of? What's the tone that you want to say for your products? What's the message that you want people to always know, and have that clearly defined? For a lot of people, they put so many, especially on social media. Right now, social media is your number one marketing platform. People are moving away from magazines, things like that. Now, if you're a certain product, like a luxury product or things like that, you will still see they still use print ads in certain, magazines, and that's totally fine. You necessarily won't see them, heavy advertising on social media, things like that, because of who their target demographic is. Yeah. So when you're doing your branding, you have to say, okay, who am I? What is it I'm trying to say? Who am I trying to reach? And how am I going to do it? So for a lot of people, they don't know how to clearly define that. They'll sit up and say, I've looked at some people's social media pages, and it's like they don't even have a social media tone defined. And people don't, most people are like, oh, I don't need that. Yes, you do. If you want your brand to be successful, you need to say, who is the spokesperson for my brand? So say a good example of that would be Wendy's. On social media, they're like that kind of snappy, but, they're kind of arrogant, but they're nice with it. Okay. So you have to say, okay, who is the person that I want to be the spokesperson for my brand? Say you make up this persona, and that's who you speak as. The other thing would be knowing that you have to market your business overall in order for it to succeed. What's going to make you different from someone else? Someone else could have a more expensive product. You could have we're going to say that you could be a boutique. You and another store offer the exact same product. This other store may be charging $56 for it. You may be charging $40. Right. And people wonder, well, why are they getting more sales than me? Well, they're investing in online social media advertisements, and they're doing it correctly.
Okay, yeah, which is the key. Right.
Which is the key. They have a defined voice for their product, and they have defined branding. And I hate to say it like this, but one of the major mistakes that I see with people is they start off with everything wrong, from a logo to a color scheme to their website. And it's like, those are simple things that you can fix easily if you just invest that money in it. What people sometimes want to do is they want to, I don't want to pay anybody to do it. I'm just going to keep wasting money trying to do it myself, and then wonder why they aren't seeing a return on their investment. So then, of course, with that, advertising, of course, is another part of it. So how are you going to get that? How are you going to get your branding out there? Who are you trying to reach? Who is your target demographic, and how are you going to reach them? And so it's really detailed, but a lot of people don't understand that it's easier for you to do it, to have someone else do it for you, if you don't know what you're doing.
Right, that whole delegation piece of it.
It's all about delegation. And so for a lot of people, they think, oh, well, I can do this myself, and they don't know the first clue about social media. They don't know the first thing about social media marketing. They don't know anything about search engine optimization. They don't know anything about using Google Analytics. Right. They don't know anything about anything new that's coming out, and that's where people like me come in, where we sit up and we say, hey, you spent $5,000 on Facebook ads last year. What was your return on investment for that? And a lot of people are like, well, people clicked on it. Well, what was your click through? What was your follow through? What was your return on that? And so it gets to be really detailed. And then, you know, a lot of people, they don't understand everything that's out there.
Yeah.
One of the major things that I've seen change in the industry is that you have a lot of people who will sit up and they want to post up a lot of video advertising. They don't understand the target demographic is moving away from that.
Right.
If you can't catch their attention in 2 seconds, you wasted your time.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, every day is changing, and you have to be able, if you're not in tune with the marketing world, you're going to miss out.
Gotcha. Yeah. So you spoke some, Danielle, about social media tone, which I had not heard that term before, and that's interesting. Kind of really caught my attention. So how would you define that? And, you know, I think a lot of people, you know, they've been on social media for most people has been around 10 years, 8 to 10 years that they've been on Facebook and maybe Twitter and that kind of thing. And they haven't really seen any movement, you know, they're on there personally, and then they're trying to do their business and whatnot. So how would you define, like, someone trying to find their tone on social media?
So one of the things that you want to do when you're trying to find a tone is you want to say, how does this resonate with my target consumer? Mm-hmm. So for a lot of people, say a good example for that would be, if you're a beauty product, are you the girl next door or are you a beauty advisor? So that you can take that 2 different ways. Right. You can say, okay, am I going to be the pretty girl next door who's just giving out advice, or am I going to be that person who's kind of pushy and wants to actually just try to sell? So, you know, you have to decide which tone you want to use depending on your product. For some older people, the beauty advisor works because they're going to look at it like, okay, this person, if your target demographic is baby boomers, right, you want to go beauty advisor because they're looking for someone, they know what they're talking about. Compared to if you go girl next door, you say build a relationship with that person, build trust, and then you say, hey, well, this is something I've been using, la, 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 and this is how it can work for you. So it really just depends on your target demographic and what your individual results are. And so for a lot of people, it can just be how you say it. So for instance, a good example would be, hey, sign up for this product. Mm-hmm. Okay, young people that'll catch on to them. For older people, that's not going to catch on. For them, it'll be, are you tired of those wrinkles? Mm-hmm. You know, something to get them. I'm just relating to, or you know, it's a difference in how you say it. And for some people, they don't understand that the major thing when you're doing social media tone is you want to say, make that connection and say you, something as simple as you. Right. And people, they miss out on it all the time, all the time.
Yeah. So if you were advising someone, you know, let's just say that they're frustrated because they've been on social media for some time, and maybe they get, and you know, a lot of people have learned, you know, algorithm, of course, over as that's become more public with, particularly with Facebook. So, you know, people that are looking for engagement, you know, what would you suggest, you know, kind of as they build that tone? You know, obviously it's not something you can do overnight.
Yeah, it's not. One of the things that I would say is that although, they have advanced algorithms now it's leaning more towards a learning computer. Now, a lot of people don't know that. Yeah. So what it does is it's actually sitting up and it's tracking what are your target consumers, what are they searching for, what are they doing while they're on the computer. That's information that's out there that can be utilized, but people don't know how to do it. Right. So one of the first things I would say is, let's see what type of ads you've been posting in the past. Let's see how much you spent on them. Let's see what's your click-through, what's your conversion rate. A lot of people necessarily, when they go on their Facebook ad dashboard, they don't necessarily know what they're reading. And a lot of times, Facebook necessarily doesn't want to make it easy for you to understand, because then you may say, well, maybe I need to stop utilizing Facebook. Instead, me personally, I wouldn't recommend for a person to necessarily just use Facebook ads. I would do more on search engine optimization, so that then when they're on Facebook, it'll show up on their Facebook feed because of where they've been somewhere else. But a lot of people don't know how to utilize that information. So it's basically saying, what have you done before? And let me show you the mistakes that you made. Let me show you why these click-throughs are not turning into conversions. And a lot of people don't understand it, because Facebook will say, oh, well, you had 100,000 views of this ad. A view can be me just scrolling and I never actually see your stuff. It just happens to be on my feed, but I just keep scrolling. But Facebook will count that as a view, compared to if I slow down, even if the video, say if it's a video and it automatically plays, that doesn't mean I paid attention. That doesn't mean I was actually watching it.
Right. Exactly.
But
And that's what I was going to get, because sometimes people look at those numbers and they're so skewed, you know, so, and then people will, you know, obviously people brag about, you know, anything they can find that they can brag about, particularly when they're ignorant of the fact and hadn't done the back research. So they may look at a video and say, oh, well, it's got, you know, 1,000 views, or it's got this or that, and they kind of brag about the materialism around and sensationalism around the number. But like you were saying, because when you're scrolling through, if you could scroll through it and the audio not come on, but you just see the video, you could sit there and watch the whole video, I guess, if you want. And then, like you say, Facebook's go catch that as a view. And so, you know, I think that's good education for people and for the audience. And so for those, if you're just picking up on the podcast, this is Danielle Reid, Marketing and Brand Ambassador, as our special guest on the Minding Your Business podcast. So it's interesting. So beyond social media, because I know that's become such a big thing, and you know, of course it's free to set up your account. It's got a large population, so naturally it's a draw for the masses. But you spoke some about search engine optimization and some other things. What are some other things that people can tap into to build their brand, or you know, to kind of advertise or promote outside of just social media? Because I think, you know, as it becomes so much more saturated and things like that, it's going to be there. It's ingrained in our culture. But anything that, you know, like I say, becomes saturated, it's kind of hard to then get your message through, and then it costs you more to get your message through. So, like for instance, does some of the old school kind of stuff still work?
Yeah. It depends on what it is, and it depends on what your specialty is.
Yeah.
Say, for instance, certain things for direct mail don't work at all.
Okay.
Unless you specifically target a certain demographic in a certain area and you know exactly what you're sending them.
Right.
That's totally fine, but it's very expensive.
Yeah.
So your return on investment is going to be extremely low on it if you aren't doing it correctly. So a good example of this is I work for a government agency, and we send out postcards.
Right.
They're extremely expensive. They probably spend about $40 million a year. Do they see a return on that? No. But to certain brands, and when we use it correctly and this is, of course, some of this happened before I became on board, but say if we're going for one specific target, it works great. But it has to be personalized for those people. If it's not personalized, it's a waste of money. But realistically, with the changes, and it's amazing because, say, 2 years ago, you could put up a billboard, and billboards are very affordable. You could see a major return on that. Social media and the internet has taken over, and that's just being realistic. Now, the thing is that people don't realize where all they can advertise. Right now, Instagram is very efficient to advertise on, very low cost.
Yeah.
You could even do something as simple on Snapchat for the younger demographic. I hate to refer to them as that, but if that's your target demographic, it is very inexpensive for you to get a Snapchat filter made with your product on it. Okay. And you can target that to geofencing. That's something else that's very popular, geofencing, and a lot of people don't know how to use it either. But it's part of social media. Yeah. Where if you're somebody's in a particular area, you know, you can geofence them to have an ad pop up while they're on Facebook and they're near your place of business. Right. So there are many different ways out there that you can utilize. Another thing that's becoming very popular is YouTube ads. Yeah. So the difference in me personally, if I'm investing, I'd rather invest in YouTube than Facebook. Reason being, you can't always skip out. You can make your ad either skippable, or you can not make it skippable on Facebook. Is up to you. Right. A 6-second ad catches their attention if you do it right, if it's utilized correctly. Right. Catch their attention. Go ahead. Tell them what you want them to do, why you want them to do it, and then you go about your business. It's easy for you to do it if you make sure, hey, what type of videos am I being advertised on? Right. It was a pharmaceutical company that makes a HIV medication. And it was funny because one day I read an ad, and it said on there, it was actually an article. And they said on there they were going to be testing YouTube ads. And literally every single person that went on YouTube for this one particular day saw an ad from them. Oh, wow. No matter who you were in the country, they literally spent, I think they said over half of it was about $500 million. Yeah. And they put it into every single person who got on YouTube that day, no matter when you got on. If you scrolled, you saw an ad from them. If you played a video, you saw an ad from them.
Yeah.
And so, people think, oh, well, that's a lot of money with their pharmaceutical company.
Of
Pharmaceutical
course, yeah.
companies, you're limited in certain fields on how you can market, and they did it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure that it worked. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I saw it. Everybody literally that day who was in the marketing industry that I knew asked me,
Everybody
have you
saw
been
it.
on YouTube?
Yeah.
Hey, did you see the ad? And I'm like, yeah. So, it worked.
Wow. So for someone like that, if we could stay on that for a second, Danielle. So if someone like it were to leverage, say, YouTube video, and say they got a limited budget, so they're listening to the podcast, they're watching on Facebook Live, and they're like, well, obviously, hell, I ain't got $500 million, so is that something I can still get into if maybe I have a limited budget and I can maybe be strategic and creative with it?
You can go a couple of different ways, especially on YouTube. If you don't have a budget to necessarily buy ads on so many videos, another way that you could do it is you could find someone to be the face of your brand. On YouTube. People don't understand product placement is everything. It doesn't even have to be where you have to have a person talk about your, what you do. It can be as simple as I'm advertising for iPhone, and iPhone paid me to put this in there, and I'm as simple as I'm just doing something else while I'm showing their phone. So something as simple as that, and it costs nothing to you. All you're doing is you're just sending your product to the person and saying, hey, when you make your next videos, can you make sure my product is in there?
Yeah. Yeah, and I've seen that with people. Obviously, they do that in the clothing industry, where someone can wear a hat or a T-shirt or do whatever. So yeah, that's interesting, and there's some things that I wasn't even aware of in terms of YouTube advertising. So for yourself, I know you mentioned you do some work for Nissan and some different brands. So do you do this kind of work for them, or do you help them?
It depends on the client needs. Sometimes yes, it's very detailed. So people have to understand before you get ready to do a brand launch, it starts anywhere from about 2 to 3 years out.
Okay.
So it's very extensive work. I've been pulled off of projects from other clients and said, hey, can you help us with this? Yeah. It's totally fine. But a lot of times it takes, it's real time consuming, but when it's done correctly, then it's done right. For me, I like to get my hands in things from the beginning rather than to be pulled on at the last minute and then like, oh, okay, this should have been done in the beginning. This should have been done. This should have been done. And that's one of the things that I've seen lately. I'm preparing for a brand launch in March and going back and I'm looking at some of the things that my predecessor did, and I'm like,
right.
No, this could have been this could have been avoided. This could have been avoided. This could have been avoided.
Right.
So it's very time consuming, but it's worth it in the end.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. If you're happen to be on Facebook Live, and if you want to join, or if you have a question for Danielle, post it in the comments, or you can post #LetMeOnRon, and I'll actually invite you, and you'll be split screen with us, and you can ask Danielle a question, or even myself if you want to do that. So, Danielle, one of the things I'm always interested in is, from a best practice standpoint, is how you've been able to kind of build your company and kind of your reputation while also having children and family and things like that. A lot of people run into when they're trying to be successful and they want to get out and grind and get started. Sometimes they're held back by the same folks that really should be there to kind of support them. It could be family, could be friends, colleagues, and then obviously people when you add in children. So how have you been able to kind of manage that as you've grown, your business over the years?
Okay. I'm not going to say that I've never been discouraged, because, everybody goes through that. But it's basically about staying focused and realizing what your end goal is. For me, it's more on, if I have to do what I want to do. I can't let anybody put their thoughts and their failures on me.
Yeah.
So I know what my goals are, and even if I stumble, it's like, okay, I still know how I'm going to get there. It's basically focusing on my end results, saying, okay, you know what? These same people were saying, oh, you can't make it, you can't do this, you can't do that. At the end, when you do make it, they're going to be the same ones.
Right.
Can I borrow $20? Or, something like that. And I hate to say it like that, because especially in our community, we get those people when you're trying to do better, you're going to always find someone who tries to hold you back. And it's basically, for me, and I hate to say this, but I don't care if you're family, friends, if I've known you for 50 years, if you don't support me,
right,
you can't be in my circle. Right. It's like my circle are full of my biggest cheerleaders. And if you can't cheer for me while I'm going through the process, don't try to cheer for me at the end when I'm winning.
Yeah.
So.
And so that's where, I've seen for you and I've seen, for many people is they have to get to a point where they're willing and have the confidence and the courage to kind of break aside from that. One of the things I think holds a lot of people back is their same circle at 18 is their same circle at 28 is their same circle at 38, and it's one thing to have loyalty and be cool and kind of still be down and that kind of thing, but I think that tie-in, because what they discount is their evolution through that process, and so they use the loyalty piece of that, which is cool, and there's a factor that you should have, but as they're evolving and becoming more knowledgeable and becoming more into whatever it is that they desire to be, when they're still trying to hold on, to that, and so a lot of people, and I see it on my Facebook timeline, is a lot of people that year in and year out, nothing changes. So they had goals in 2013 that become 2014 goals, that become 2015 goals, they become 2016 goals, 2017, 2018. Yeah. So you're going through these years and nothing really changes because they don't really change their environment. They're fearful of getting out and networking and meeting people. And some of that because they're not as confident maybe in what value they bring. And so it's just interesting when you see that as you talk about it.
I mean, I can love a person from a distance. For me, you cannot be in my close circle if you don't motivate me to do better or if I don't motivate you to do better. And that's what people don't understand. They'll sit up and they say, well, this person has been friends with me since I was in first grade. That's fine. But if that person is not on the up and up or is not bettering themselves, I can't have anything to do with you. That doesn't mean I don't love you, but you can't be, you've moved out of my circle. You're now in this, outer core. You can't be in my inner circle because it's nothing that we have in common.
Right.
If, and I hate to say it, if you're still doing the same things, it's 2018. If you're still doing the same things that you were doing in 2015, we can't function because it's like, I'm all about progress. I'm not about being stagnant. And for a lot of people, I think they're fearful of change because it's been embedded in them that, hey, well, if you already have a decent job, you're making $50,000 a year, you should be fine with that. Especially, say for me, when I told my parents, and of course, they're the older generation, they grew up not knowing, hey, they can have, we can have our own businesses. They didn't think like that. They thought well, if you got this good warehouse and this good job right here, you need to stay there. That's where you need to stay instead of, hey, entrepreneurship is what got you that, because you're fulfilling someone else's dream. And I don't want, it's like, I don't want that for myself. I don't want it for my kids. I don't want it for the next generations. I want them to know that if it's something they dream of doing, they can go and they can do it. They don't have to spend the next 40 years of their life working at Hershey on night shift, making $17 an hour, and then not being able to enjoy it because they're working 80 hours a week. It doesn't have to be that. And so for a lot of people, they're fearful of change, and then they allow other people's fear to come on to them. So you can, and for me, I'm that person where when people call me for advice or they ask me a question, I sit up and I look at I look at all sides of it. And for some people, they can have such tunnel vision that they don't see everything around them.
Right.
And I will tell them, well, have you thought about A, B, C, or D? Okay, well, if that's the best thing to do, this is how you need to do it. And guess what? Even if you fall, guess what you still have to fall back on? You still have this option here. You still have this option here. Right. And for a lot of people, they don't understand that your circle needs to be either who you aspire to be or they need to be a reflection of you.
Right.
And so for a lot of people, I mean, just like how I said, it's people who I've known since I was in kindergarten. I don't associate with you.
Right.
Because you're still doing the same thing that you were doing when we graduated high school. And it's nothing, we have nothing in common.
Exactly. So, and this is no knock, because you touched on this from a demographic standpoint. And so no knock on anybody that's listening to the podcast that's a baby boomer or watching on Facebook. But, here's kind of what I've seen. You can tell me what you think on this, Danielle. I've seen baby boomer parents, if you think of when they grew up. So most of them grew up and came to age in the kind of the 60s, 70s kind of time frame, where you had obviously you had Vietnam, you had the civil rights movement, and so there was a lot of kind of chaos. A lot of the world was changing, and you had leadership particularly in African American, Black, whatever you want to say, in the community where that leadership was either went to jail or was killed, and so they saw that as kids. And so what I think happened is the economy continued to grow. You got through Vietnam, and you had this period where you started having people be on the move out of the city, go to the suburbs, and there was this easy tie-in of, well, if you follow this pathway, you go to college, you get this degree, so you become that much more marketable, and then you go and you can work and make this amount of money for the rest of your career. And it's like a lot of things, the early adopters, sure, that's maybe what works for them, right? But what happens is people don't evolve their thinking, and they don't pivot when the world goes in a different direction. And so what happens is that kind of tone or that kind of push for, as baby boomers grew up, they were hippies at first, then they become ultra mature in the 80s, right? And so now it's okay, they have children, and now they want to push that same message, not realizing that the cost was constantly going up, because a lot of different factors that was constantly growing the cost of going to school and all that. So now you're at a point where, because school is so expensive, to get a degree and things like that, that parents, and rightfully so on this case, because they become scared that, well, if it don't work, you're going to be the first person, you're going to call me first, and you ain't going to have no money, and you're going to this, and that, and then I'm going to have to dip into my 401k and go in my account to help support you because you ain't do what I told you to do. And y'all know I'm telling the truth. So that's their mindset of what they're thinking, instead of, I think people are at their best when they're doing what they truly enjoy and have a passion for, as opposed to, like you mentioned, a baby boomer parent that is more kind of domineering on their children on what they want to do, either because of L's they took in the past, or L's they seen someone else took, or just their overall fear on they want you to be successful, want you to do well, which is great. But then the other side of it is, like you said, they instill their fears. So that's why when you show up and say, well, no, I don't want to work at Nike. I want to start my own, and fill in the blank. Even if you're doing them together, and then eventually that's what you want to transition to. A lot of times, your parents are like, I don't know. Most businesses fail. They start doing everything.
They start to be negative. And that's it's funny that you say that, because even in the career world, they talk about now how millennials switch jobs more than any other generation.
Right.
And people don't understand, and even business owners, this is something they have to understand. If you want to retain good talent, you have to know how to keep them. Right. If they aren't happy, you're going to lose talented people. And that's, you already know my story about a place that I worked with last year. And, I basically, when I left, the company folded. And it was all because, hey, I went to you and I said, hey, well, here's something I've shown you. Hey, this is the progress that I've made here. I believe that I need this, this, and this. And the owners told me, no. And then you look like fools 3 months later when you've lost, $50 million, because guess what? Danielle isn't there anymore. And you thought that the person who you trusted, knew what they were doing. And now you've closed up that division for good. And it's like, that's the reason why millennials, and I hate to say it, but we are one of the most valuable things the workplace has to offer, because we bring in new insight. And even though, we're still paying for our degrees, and we will be paying for them until we leave this earth. But, it's like we bring a different insight to it that sometimes the baby boomers, they can't see, because they're so stuck on their way of thinking that they don't understand the world is ever evolving. Right. So exactly.
And that's the thing. And so when we're talking about even like this from kind of a personal branding standpoint, it's very important and critical that even as you transcend demographic areas, that you keep an open mind and have that evolved level of thinking as the landscape changes, and people that can kind of quickly anticipate that and then be in a position to execute and kind of take advantage of when the opportunities come are the ones. So that's whether it's someone that's running a company, someone that's got their own business, whether you're an employee, whether you're an entrepreneur, business owner, entrepreneur, whatever it is that you are, your ability to then recognize that and recognize talent and recognize new ways of thinking And I think that's something that's kind of happened in our country is we become so segmented that what we do is we put ourselves in boxes. Yeah, people. It's easy to put yourself in an affinity group, right, where everybody agrees and everybody thinks like I do. And you see that in politics. You see that kind of all the way around. And you even see it some in business now, where people are kind of their mindset on like what they think is like-minded is then to use it to segment, which is really makes you like-minded because you're all closed-minded.
Yeah,
right?
Basically.
You know what I mean? So yeah, you're like-minded because all your minds are closed, and that's where I think we've got to continue to push the envelope on that. So it's definitely good stuff. For someone that's listening to this, Danielle, or they're watching. I appreciate everybody on Facebook Live. If they did want to hire you or did want to connect with you and kind of learn more about how you maybe can help their business, how would they do that?
They can email me at Danielle@DanielleReidPR.com. Normally, of course, I have a professional Facebook page, but a lot of times it's easier for me to get an email from a person for them to outline exactly what they need, and then I'll set up a time to call them or video chat or meet for coffee at Starbucks or however they choose to do it. I don't necessarily discuss a lot of business on my personal Facebook page, and that's another thing. People need to learn to separate business from personal on Facebook page, on Facebook period. And so sometimes people they'll say, hey, well, I need some help. Okay, that's fine for you to connect with me initially on there, but then I'll say just email me.
Yeah. So. Gotcha. So let's just jump into that real quick because I think there's some value there in what you just said in terms of personal and your business on so use Facebook as the example because I think some people struggle, Danielle, with so you got the superficial side of it, right? That Facebook is set up to give you a little bit more engagement on your personal page than on your business page. Certainly in the very short run. Now it may balance out over time, and so some people say, well, I want to use a personal profile for my business page, or use my personal profile to exclusively promote my business. What's kind of your thoughts on that?
Okay, that's one of the biggest mistakes you can make, and for a lot of people, I'll see where they'll come to me and they'll say, well, I have a business page, but it's not getting any friction on it. Well, the first issue is nobody likes your Facebook page. I'll go and I'll look on there and they maybe have 138 likes.
Right.
So you haven't invited any of your friends to like your Facebook business page. That's the first thing.
Right.
Number two, no one will ever know about your business page if you never push them towards that. I see so many people who say, oh, I'm deleting Messenger. But you're using your personal Facebook page for business. So guess what? Now you're missing out on customers. Right. That's another issue. And so for a lot of people, one of the major mistakes I see is when I look at a business page, and this is just me, just the marketing side of me, I'll go and I'll see, what have you liked from your Facebook business page? Let me see the reasoning why some people may click off of your page. And then I look on there and I see, oh, you have political things on there. Okay. You have religious things on there, and people don't understand. They want to say, well, that's my business. Okay, that's fine. But this is the day and age where everybody doesn't agree on everything. And there's certain things, even in the workplace, they tell you don't discuss politics and religion. Right. Don't discuss it on your business page. Even though you can say, well, this is my business. That's fine and dandy. But it may be someone who doesn't necessarily agree with your religious views because they may be, offensive or whatever the case may be. Or they may not agree with this politician's page that you have liked and you have shared posts from to your business page because that person may have said something offensive or may not be of moral character. So exactly. People need to understand that you need to limit that type of stuff on your Facebook page, especially if you're using your personal Facebook page for business. But if you're doing that, stop doing it immediately. Now, there's nothing wrong with you occasionally sharing a post from your business page to your personal page. That's totally fine. But I get on Facebook, and if your name on there is sweet and tempting berries or, something of that sort, or sweet and tempting scents, I'm going to immediately delete your friend request because I'm going to say to myself that you don't understand how to run a business. Right. And it's like, okay, you took this time to make this personal Facebook page, and what's going to hurt you is, and I'm not saying that I'm going to do it, but Facebook does go and occasionally they run through people's profiles, and if they see it's a business page, they go ahead and they delete you. They won't let you get that page ever back again. So guess what just happened to all your friends on Facebook? Guess what just happened to all those customers? Work. All of that's gone.
Yeah.
And so it's like, go ahead and make that Facebook business page.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So Jamar Rogers was asking, she wanted to repeat, please. I'm not sure, Jamar, what you wanted specifically to repeat. So if you'll post it, or if you want to come on and join in, you can ask directly on your whatever device that you're watching the Facebook Live. If you want to ask Danielle directly. So Jamar, if you want to post or comment exactly what you want to have repeated, then we'll see if we can do that. Okay. All right. Cool. So. In terms of, she says, wow. I guess she's catching up.
Email.
The email. Yeah.
Okay.
So
my email address is Danielle, DANIELLE at DanielleReidPR.com.
All right. Excellent. So hopefully you got that, Jamar, and anybody else that needs that. I do encourage you all to reach out to Danielle. You need that kind of support. And again, as I was talking earlier, as things become saturated, they become much more involved, a little more in depth. It's fine to want to bootstrap and things like that. You can have that pride of ownership. But at some point, if you're going to begin, escalating your business, you got to begin to scale it up. And so then you need expertise outside of just yourself. Look at any business. Jeff Bezos didn't grow Amazon by just sitting in the closet selling books online himself, right? Mm-hmm. So you've got to be able to bring on, and I know how y'all are. Y'all get, I can't trust nobody, and Pookie don't know this, and I don't trust Ray with my money. I get that, right? So then you got to go back to what we were saying earlier is you've got to include your circle with people that not just you can trust, but do have that open mind of wanting to progress. So you've got to do that. You've got to figure out a way to do that. You can't just sit at home on the couch on Facebook, thinking that you're going to do that. You've got to get up. You got to get out, right? And you got to be on the move. So, Danielle, any other questions or anything else that you maybe want to share in terms of branding? I think it's been a great conversation. You shared great value.
No, I mean, basically, it's going to be a million people who do the same thing that you do. Yeah. What the main thing that's going to differentiate you from anyone else is how are you going to market it? Yeah. And people don't understand that's the number one thing. Even when you first do your business plan, how are you going to get your name out there?
Yeah.
And they don't. A lot of people, they just sit and they say, "Oh, I got to get a building. I got to get this. I got to get that." Well, that's where marketing again comes into play. Why are you going to get a building in this area right here when this is not? What's your product? What's your target demographic? It starts from the very beginning. You can set yourself up for failure from the very beginning and not even know it.
Yeah, by not having the right strategy and then the right target market. And then, so that brings actually another question, because as simple and maybe intuitive that it may be in terms of when you ask people their target market, one of the things I hate when I ask that question is when folks come back and they say, well, everybody. Who's your target market? No, I said target market. I didn't say, they say, well, everybody's my target market.
No.
It's like, no, I don't care if you selling toilet tissue, which hopefully everybody's wiping but even if you're selling toilet tissue, everybody, every human being is still not your target market. You may like that ideally, which every business would, but every person on the planet Earth is not your target market.
Yeah, it's not.
So, what are your thoughts on that as far as people identifying it properly, their target market?
So that's why you create something that are called your character personas. So when you're trying to decide who's going to buy this product, you have to decide, okay, and just like, everybody wants to say, everyone is my target market. Correct. No, they aren't. So even with you doing that, you have to say, well, I may have this person, we're going to say Cottonelle versus Target brand tissue. The person who buys Cottonelle is not the same person who buys Target brand. They may cross paths eventually on certain things, but Cottonelle is more expensive. Target is not as low budget as Select Brand or Dollar Gourmet or whatever. But you have to decide. Hey, well, let's create these personas on who we want to target. So it could be anywhere ranging from. So we're going to use a women's boutique, for example. It could be that. Okay, with this person right here, one of my target consumers is going to be the 17 to 23-year-old college student. They may be on a limited budget, but their parents provide them with an allowance of $200 a week. That may be one of them. Then you may be another boutique owner that says, okay, I also have another brand of clothing here. It's for the stay-at-home mom who ranges from ages 30 through 45, who she likes to dress up and go out with her friends eventually. She also likes to drink a little bit, so she wants a nice outfit.
Right.
It's multiple personalities that you can create, and so you have to know, how am I going to reach each one of those type of people?
Right.
So people think, oh, my target demographic is everybody. No, it isn't. If you're a certain... So here's another good example. So I have a client who she does lashes. Now everybody can say, oh, it's a million people who do lashes. Mm-hmm. That's true. But then you get into different things when you're getting into lashes. Okay, what's the quality? What's the price range? Who's your target demographic? Those are things you have to sit on. You have to say, she's charging $250 for lashes compared to some other people are offering the same service for $50.
Right.
Her target demographic, they make, $85,000 a year and higher, while this other person target demographic is, they going for everybody. They just put ads up on Facebook, on Marketplace, or whatever the case may be. And so their target demographic is the person who just got their tax refund check yesterday. Mm-hmm. And so they may just come to them one time,
right, and
they never see them again, compared to my other client where they have, a higher income. They're targeting a certain demographic area of Memphis, of Shelby County, because it's not necessarily Memphis, but they're getting those people who come back month after month. And then the person who's only charging $50 can't figure out, well, why nobody's coming back to me, but they're going to the person that's charging triple what I charge. It's the reason why. So
exactly. So Jamar Rogers says, my husband and I need her help badly, but our budget. So would you like to address that, Danielle?
Okay. So for a lot of people, they think, oh, marketing is expensive. And this is me just being honest. I prefer to help smaller businesses than larger businesses. For certain things, people try to think, oh, we can't afford it. Mm-hmm. It's all about, let's see what you can afford and go from there. I've given people, just say, and this is me just being cut dry and honest, I'm not going to charge an individual the same price as I'm going to charge Nissan.
Right, of course.
I'm not going to charge you the $95 an hour or whatever the case may be for that. But realistically speaking, anyone can afford marketing services. It can be as simple as me just doing you a marketing plan for less than $500 and saying, here's where you need to prepare to invest. And just like right now, a lot of people are getting their tax refunds. Take some of that money and invest it back into your marketing so that you can see where your return on investment is going to be. Don't go out and buy you a new purse. Right. Don't go out and buy you some new shoes. Invest that money back into your business. Right. So people assume that marketing is going to be really expensive when it's not necessarily. And I'm very affordable because I love what I do. Yeah. Now, for some people who they look at it like, oh, this is a big money maker. For me, I love what I do. So that doesn't mean I'm going to do it for free, but I provide a really affordable service.
Well, it's just like you talked about earlier. So you talked about, companies that get with you when they're going out of business and want to advertise going out of business. Mm-hmm. So you're going to do it one way or the other. Either you're going to advertise to build the business, or you're going to advertise that you're going out. Mm-hmm. If you got inventory.
And keep in mind, when you're going out of business, you have to pay fees to the state for going out of business. So, hey.
Right, exactly. So the whole thing is being creative. If I were to add in anything for that. I would say get with Danielle and then look at, what your goals are. I think that's the first thing, and then begin laying out a plan, and then that's going to help you with where you need to invest. And, some of it may be from a financial standpoint, some of it may be from a time standpoint, implementation, maybe type of platform, things like that. But one of the things, as Danielle spoke to, for you all is there's a slew of creative ways to make it happen. And the one thing that you heard Danielle kind of talk about as a theme is not a one size fits all. So, every business has their different approach, their different target market, their different values and things like that. So I would just encourage, anybody is, before you rule it out in your mind, and this is where you have to challenge your critical thinking, is before you start looking at your bank account and saying, well, I've got $900 in my account, I don't get paid for 2 more weeks, and the day before I get paid, I'm probably going to be overdrawn and all this kind of. So, obviously, you may have some behavior things in there. We'll talk about that in another podcast. But, you got to look at, okay, what are you going to sacrifice? What are you going to invest in? So, even before you get with Danielle, start thinking about, envisioning the success. What do I want this to be? How can I see someone like Danielle helping me take that brand or my company to the next level. And then don't worry so much about the financial piece of it. Sit down with her, and then you can determine, and she'll help you determine what kind of investment then you need to make. But don't rule it out in your mind. And I think a lot of people psych themselves out. They begin, they hear things and it sounds good to them, but then they like, oh, but I got that student loan payment, and I owe Capital One, and I still got Chase calling me, and they about to send me the collections and all. I know how we are, and we all experience this kind of things, right? So don't get so caught up into that. Many people that have been successful have started just where everybody is. And so get with Danielle. Give them the email address again.
It's Danielle at DanielleReidPR.com. And that's another thing. So for a lot of people, one of the things that I do when I sit down with them is I go over, let me see where you are spending your money. Yeah. So, I do have a business management degree. And so one of the things that pet peeves me on Facebook is I see these people who say they're business coaches. And I'm thinking, you've never coached a successful business, but whatever. And so they'll sit up and they'll tell people, oh, well, come sit down with me for $500 and I'm going to do this, and this. And it's like, yeah, and you're not going to see anything else from them once you get that $500. But for a lot of people, I sit down with them and I say, okay, let's look at your expenses. Let's see, where have you been spending your money? Where is your money going out? Where is it coming in? And that's one of the things when you have a person who actually knows how to do marketing, that's one of the things they're going to sit down with you and that they're going to do. They're going to say, let's see where let's see exactly what's going on financially so that we can adjust that, so that you can see, okay, this is where we need to increase, this is where we need to decrease. And this is where your bottom line should be by the time we get done with a successful marketing campaign. So.
Yeah. Well, you touched on something that, you do see a lot, whether it's social media or just in the environment now anyway, is there's a lot of people who do things from an academic standpoint. So like you talked about, a business coach that's never been in business. Someone that wants to tell you how to open whatever business, they've never done it. So... I can't, I tend to stick to my business with things that I've done and that I know.
Yeah.
So I even see people that are executive coaches that have never been executive. So how are you what are you going to coach them to do?
I think that people, they just really like to throw that title out there. And a lot of times for certain demographics, they get stuck on titles. This person says they're a life coach or that they're this. And I'm like, how are you going to be a life coach when you're 25? You haven't even seen everything that life has to offer.
To me, a life coach has to be someone that's lived life.
Yeah,
and so
you haven't even touched the surface yet.
Yeah,
so,
I know that'd be facetious, but you have to come back as a ghost to tell me. You know what I mean? Like your spirit needs to come back and tell me about you live to be and you've experienced all these different things. Otherwise, you're just talking about things that are academic. Yeah. If you haven't gone through them.
And that's another thing. Even in the marketing industry, I see so many people who, and I hate to say this just in Memphis because it's not, but I'll see people who say, "Oh, I'm a marketing guru. I'm a branding guru," and I'm looking at them like, yeah, but when it comes time to go to marketing conferences or to get selected to go to things that matter, they aren't there. Yeah. And so, like, I made some people mad because they said, "Oh, you're being petty on Facebook," because I said, "Hey, I was the only person from the southeastern region of the United States that got invited to go to Google last month. I didn't see anybody else from Memphis or Tennessee there. But you want to say, oh, I'm a marketing guru. Oh, I'm a marketing professional. But you aren't there when it matters." And so for a lot of people, they just want to throw these fake titles together. And sometimes people buy into it without actually saying, well, show me your proof on where you've done this, or show me the proof. People just know that, hey, I'm going to create this persona on the internet and people are going to fall into it. Right. And it's like, no, for a lot of those people, I've never seen where clients came back and they said, "Oh yeah, I profited $1 million because of them." You never see it. Right.
Yeah. Tell us real quick, and I know we're going to have to run, but tell us a little bit about your time with the Google conference, because I think that's excellent, and a lot of people may not know the significance of that.
Yes. So Google held their first ever. Trying to think. I don't know why I can't think what it's called right now. They did a conference last month. It's called Google Inspire Academy. Yeah. So they chose the top 50 marketing and communication professionals from the U.S. to attend. And so we got to go into a very thoughtfully, it was very thoughtful with what they did. And they basically brought us in for 3 days and did full immersion into everything from, what's changing with search engine optimization, what's changing with paid search, what's changing in social media marketing, showing us how to, just like I said with the YouTube and things like that, showing, hey, well, YouTube is about to change some things. Let's show you how it's going to change for your clients, how you all can utilize this information. So basically, we kind of just got on the forefront of some changes that are coming across with Google and learning more about how we can utilize our relationships with Google to better it for our clients and to make sure they're getting the most bang for their buck.
Yeah, dig that. Well, I know that was incredible for you. That was a great opportunity. So, listen, Danielle, I thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule.
Oh, yeah.
I know to come. I know you got more branding to go do for some folks, but thank you all on Facebook Live, everybody that joined. Again, make sure you communicate with Danielle when you're serious about your brand, your personal brand, your company brand. You're starting up. You've been in business for 40 years. Doesn't really matter. You need to be on the forefront of what's going on. You can't just react. You can't wait to just see an article. By then, when someone's writing about it or they're on CNN talking about it, it's too late. Everybody has already moved on from that. So be on the forefront. You need professionals to help you do that. I do that. Many people that are successful in business do that. So thank you all again so much. Make sure, again, check out the podcast, www.themybpodcast.com, www.themybpodcast.com. Next week, I'm going to be, since all y'all done seen Black Panther and y'all gone to Wakanda and Mississippi and everywhere else, I'm going to talk about Black Panther, and I'm going to get into some of the symbolism with it and how it can encourage personal and professional development. And I'm going to have a little bit of twist on that. I'm going to have a special guest, so you'll be able to see that. So listen, Ron Brooks, the Mind Your Business podcast. Thank you again, Danielle Reid. Have a great weekend, and we'll catch you next week. Peace. Thank y'all so much for joining in. Make sure you share this video across your platforms. Tag me in it. Tag Danielle. We want to support you. We want to help you grow your business. We want you to be successful. Peace out.